Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. Toyah Willcox, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
You look amazing and you sound better than ever. I just stood here for 20 minutes watching you sound check before a gig tonight, and my God, what a voice. I mean, it's operatic, isn't it?
Well, I trained in opera. I trained in opera from the age of about 14 right through to 18, German opera. I keep catching myself talking German, even though my German isn't great, but that really helped me. And if anything, it's hard to get it out the voice, because when I have to do those big notes at the end of songs, that's when I kick the opera in. I have a real ambition to be in an opera one day, and I never say never, and I don't think doors close. I think one day it might happen. But if I did go into an opera, it would have to be really modern and really extreme, because I am a rock singer.
You're a singer, you're an actress, you're a personality, you're a star at heart. What do you want to be?
It's a really good question, because I have to work psychologically. I have to work. If the phone isn't ringing or I'm not creating something, I don't really exist. I just sit there blank. So I always create projects, and by creating projects, other things come in. So, I mean, last year I was playing Queen Elizabeth I in the stage version of Jubilee, which was a complete surprise, but that also featured my music. This year we've got In the Court of the Crimson Queen coming out. It's just gone beyond what we thought would happen. In the pre-order charts, it went #1 across the board, and it's out on April the 12th, and fingers crossed we'll get a chart position with that. But it's just been great. In the last 2 days, I've done 50 radio interviews, and people are loving the music. So you ask what I am. This year, I'm dominantly a singer, but I'm also doing a movie as well. I've got a great movie coming up in June. So I just keep filling that diary and see what happens. And tonight we're doing an acoustic show, and I like to think that the acoustic is helping me learn to become a musician and a singer, because when you only have 2 guitars and 3 voices, you've really got to be spot on, and it's taught me so much doing this show. We've done it now for 5 years. We go into lovely little spaces. This is a village hall near Nottingham, completely sold out. We could have done a week here, but it will be magical. We know that, because it's up close and it's very personal.
It seems like you were born to be on stage, and when we look back to your childhood, that's sort of incongruous in a way, because you were so shy and so bullied, and really to stand up on stage today must be a huge strain still, or is it now a second home?
The acoustic I love, and I know it's going to be good. It's just a magical show. We even had a stage invasion in Otley last week. There's just something about this show that I think people are so close, they go a bit bonkers. Arenas, we do the festivals, so we do experience the large audiences, 60,000, between 30 and 60,000, and I'm more frightened for those than I will be tonight, and part of that is it's so special. You feel the energy. There is a definite change in atmosphere when you've got that amount of people in front of you, and I find it overwhelming. I did a guest appearance at Glastonbury 3 years ago, and I felt as though my feet needed to be nailed to the ground. I just felt as though I was levitating off the ground. There was 250,000 people on site, and it just felt radically different to anything I've ever experienced. So I'm a little bit sensitive to the audience. I'd say I'm more scared at arenas than I am in the acoustic.
You've got that great thing, though, like Cliff and Scylla and Dale and all these people, that you're in legendary status. We only need your first name.
Well, yeah, I'm Toyah, yeah. I think it's very nice that people are saying I have legendary status. I think it's because of my age.
And is it fun being you now? I mean, you've nothing to prove, yet you're working more and harder than you've ever worked. It must be thrilling and liberating in a way that we know what we're going to get. It's a guaranteed check when we come and see you that you're going to deliver.
I do deliver, because the audience comes first. I don't think I've gone beyond that point where I have nothing to prove. As an actress, I've got everything to prove, and I'm still learning. The new album, I think, is a beautiful album, and it is so exclusively me that I think I want people to hear it and go, yes, this Toyah's being Toyah, and that suits me down to the ground. But there's always something to prove. Time moves on. Nothing is fixed. And I think only your Hendrix and your Bowie and your John Lennons have that nothing to prove music that is their legacy. I'm not quite there yet. I'm trying my damnedest, but I'm not quite there yet.
I listened to this entire CD all the way through, and there were two songs that stood out. And what's remarkable about this double album is that it's so eclectic. I mean, 1 minute we've got these beautiful ballads, the next minute we've got sort of you at your height, where you were doing these sort of outrageous songs and playing on the sort of big ballad stuff and the rock stuff. And then there's two songs that I thought were wonderful, which is Heal Ourselves and also Sensational as well, which is literally sensational. And I don't think you've ever sounded better. Congratulations on this. It's so beautifully produced.
Thank you. Well, I write with my co-partner, Simon Darlow. I've been writing with him since I was 18 and he was 17. He's worked on many of my big albums as well. We have a very psychic relationship. Put us in a room and things just happen. He picks up a guitar, he hits the piano, and we come up with something like Sensational in 2 minutes. Heal Ourselves came about because at the time it was written, we were very conscious of artists' responsibility towards being positive in the world at a time when the world is completely bloody crazy. And we wanted to write something that really connected artists to the audience. So that became Heal Ourselves.
You were ahead of your time, weren't you? I mean, I look at what you did as a child, and you were an artist, let's face it. When you walked through the streets of Birmingham, I mean, people had never seen anything like it. Was that some sort of divine intervention, or was it you being you, or was it influence? Because let's face it, it's easy to fit in the crowd. It's very difficult to deliberately stand out.
Well, at that time, there was no social media, there were no mobile phones, no one could take pictures of me on the street. So, in a way, that made it very easy to be a strange fish in a large pool. So I was a hair model for a very big department store from the age of 14 because I had remarkable hair. And very quickly I started to dye my hair all colours under the rainbow, and that gave me a very unique identity at the time. I didn't know about punk rock, and this was about 1974, 75. And then a friend said to me, you should really go and see the Sex Pistols at Bogart's in Birmingham. And that was 75. I went to see them, and I really thought up until that point I was the only punk in the village. I was in a room with 350 kids who were all dyeing their hair, all making their own clothes. And I thought, where were you? I've been so lonely for so many years. And here we all are, the tribe. And it was a very lucky time for me. From about 75 into 76, right through to about 85, everything fell in my lap. And it was to do with this being unique and to being quite strange and not fitting in to the mould. I ended up working with Laurence Olivier, Katharine Hepburn, Sir John Mills, Diana Dawes, and I had 3 platinum albums. It was just remarkable, utterly remarkable.
And what a great time to be alive and working. I don't know whether if we started today, would have the same stories. I mean, there aren't those type of legends around who you can speak of that people take an intake of breath.
I think I'd have found a way. If I was out in the world today as a teenager, I would have been on social media, I would have been on YouTube, I'd have found a way. I was a pretty outrageous kid, and I've always liked challenging taboos, and there's still plenty of taboos to challenge. And that's the biggest advice I give to anyone on YouTube, is look at the taboos and break them.
Help me with what it's like being a woman in 2019. Where are we at now? It must be very difficult because we've got Me Too and all of that stuff. I mean, what would you have thought of that if that was around in the 60s? Does it help or not help?
Oh, if we had Me Too in the late 70s, which is when I kicked in, oh boy, it was unbelievable being a woman in very much a man's world. Especially doing Northern Working Men's Clubs, especially going even north of the border. I don't want to put these places down because they were great to play and the audiences were fantastic. But you were just groped the whole time, left, right and centre, just groped. I think there's even photographs out there where I'm being groped. At the time, there was no Me Too, there was no voice for how you felt. And what Me Too has done is given vulnerable women a voice and to point out when these situations has happened. I have felt no need to take part in Me Too, because to be quite honest, I just used my fists. And there's a few men out there who would happily use Me Too on me. I mean, I just smashed them in the face. I had no qualms about that at all. And there are other singers who are renowned for doing that too. Today, I think it's rather a fantastic time for women, because I think women can be sexually very open. They can have multiple partners if they want multiple partners. It's quite hard to do that 30, 40 years ago. They can be gay, they can be straight, they can choose their gender. I think that is all really healthy. What I would like to see, that can happen without anyone batting an eyelid.
Right.
Because really, I think it's nobody's business what your sexuality is and what your gender is. I've always kind of fought for being seen as a person. And I think that is on its way, and that's a good thing.
And it is depressing in 2019, as I sit here shocked that you tell me that men would just come and grope you. It's incredible to me as a 39-year-old man. I can't imagine a world where that existed, but that was the case. Was that ever the case with management too, and the record companies and the producers around you? Did you experience that? Because that's what we're hearing about too, that even once you'd left the club, you still had to face it.
There's some extreme, very one-off, that very on their own things happen. My band really looked after me. I remember getting to Leeds sometime in 1979 to a club, and it was the height of the fear of the Yorkshire Ripper. And firstly, I arrived at this club, and my wonderful lighting man said to me, "Do not stay here alone. The club owner thinks he has a right to sleep with you. Do not go anywhere, even the ladies, without one of us escorting you." So that was cool. This is what my band did. They looked after me. Then I tried to walk to the B&B, and a police car picked me up, and they said, "You can't be alone because of the Yorkshire Ripper." So, you know, all of that. So we lived through that. My generation lived through that, because no one knew who and what and where the next strike was going to happen. As for the casting couch, one very remarkable one, which actually I feel quite proud of, because this director was legendary, and it was Russ Meyer of Valley of the Vixens. And I was actually sent to an audition for one of his films in the late 70s. No idea what I was in for. And I arrived at the audition, and I was asked to take my top off. And I just put two and two together, and I just said, "This ain't for me," and I walked. But that happened in those days. It did happen. So, and in a way, I'm really glad I met Russ Meyer, because, you know, that age, that kind of boogie nights age of movie making, is no more. And I was almost part of it.
How incredible. And then I wonder where you got that tenacity and confidence from. Was it your parents? Was it your family? Where did you find that from within you, where other girls may have felt forced to do whatever he wanted of them? You had the tenacity to stand up and walk out. Most people wouldn't be that brave.
No, it was just not a problem walking out on that one. It was just
so... You know, that's extraordinary. Most women, some women, may not have made that choice, which they could have regretted forever. You had that within you. I wonder where that comes from.
Well, some women would have wanted that job. I just didn't want that job. It wasn't hard to walk out on that one. For me, I think knowing that I was not tall, not particularly feminine, that I had to just be individualistic, and that I knew that's how I was going to survive, which kind of made me very bombastic and full of bravado. I just knew I hadn't got the feminine card to play. If I could go back into the heavens when I was being conceived and choose the body, believe me, I would have chosen a supermodel body, because I think they have an easier life. I got this body. And I just decided that I had to be very tomboyish, which I am, but I knew that was my way of surviving.
I don't think you can see yourself as the rest of the world sees you. You are a sex symbol. I mean, my father, for example, thinks you're delicious. I mean, as you sit here now, you look stunning and beautiful. I don't know why you constantly in interviews always say that you were fat and ugly as a child and you're not pretty and all of that. You know you are now, right? I mean, what have you got to prove today?
Back then I was 3 stone heavier, and you know, today there's nothing wrong with that. Back then, in the movie industry and in the music industry, as soon as I was signed on a label, I had to lose that weight. And I was complicit. It was absolutely fine. I didn't mind at all. I kind of lost it when filming Quadrophenia because we were on so many amphetamines to get through that film. All of us were like popping pills. It was like, yeah. It was a fabulous experience. But back then, it was expected of you. I had a dietitian. He weighed me weekly. I was weighed before I did Top of the Pops. I was complicit. It was absolutely fine. It was the everyday. And what you've got to remember is I had songs to write. I had scripts to learn. I had venues to get to. We were permanently in front of the camera. On one day, I could do a photo session, 5 interviews and a 2.5-hour show. It was just full on. And the creativity meant more to me back then. And there was no sense back then of eating clean, being healthy. You were going to live forever.
Right.
Everyone felt they were going to live forever. If you told someone that you needed to eat clean to have longevity, you'd go, no, that's just rubbish. So we were just eating whatever we could get our hands on, and it wasn't much in those days. Vegetarianism was a hard thing to follow in those days. I can remember getting to Manchester on a Sunday and finding nowhere to eat. You could just about get a bag of chips, and that was it. So those kind of things back then you didn't consider. All you considered was the speed and the competitiveness of getting an album finished, getting the best tour on the road, and then starting all over again.
You've achieved so much in your career. I mean, when I read down the list of 24 albums and 40 shows you've appeared in, over 30 films, I mean, it's a remarkable legacy you're leaving for the world to enjoy. Has it been fun? It seems to me you've had one of the most blessed careers. You've always been in work, you've always been relevant, and it's always been good stuff, and that's the trickiest thing, isn't it? We can all work, but is it good stuff?
It's the only life I know. I couldn't be any other way, and I don't actually feel I've arrived yet. I can only put this in perspective, and this is a direct quote from Lulu on Radio 2. And someone asked her a similar question, and she said, I'm hoping to be discovered. And that's what it feels like, and I totally agree. I don't feel I've arrived yet. I'm not known as a film star. I have lovely cameo roles in films, and I work in films. I also help co-produce and get finance for films, which I love. I'm very passionate about all of that. Funny enough, you asked me, that everyone knows who I am and I'm legendary. I only feel now, and I'm about to turn 61, that I'm arriving. And I think that's thanks to my writing partnership with Simon Darlow, because I do think in The Court of the Crimson Queen, if it was my swan song, I am very happy with it. There's songs on there I just am so proud of, like Dance in the Hurricane, Heal Ourselves, Legacy, 21st Century Super Sister. I am really, really proud of those songs. So I only think I'm arriving now. And it's kind of good, because I'm not sure how long I can keep doing it for.
Are we going to sit down in another 10 years at 71 and you're going to say the same thing? I mean, at what point are you going to give yourself a break and look down your own CV, just Wikipedia yourself? I mean, there's a lot going on there. You must be at least proud, even if you don't think you've arrived.
I'm very proud of surviving. I am definitely a survivor, and I've survived with very, very little support. I've done virtually all of this myself with my musicians. I manage myself because I can't find a manager, I can't find a PA. No one wants the lifestyle I have. And let me put this in perspective. It's in the office from 8 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon, and drive to the venue, do a gig, drive home, back in the office till 4 in the morning. That's the schedule. No one wants to be part of that. I kind of have to find people with the equal amount of insomnia that I have, and it's hard. It's hard.
I think people forget, though, it's show business, and you have to run a business to make it a show. I mean, and that's what you've done all your career, really, haven't you? You've had to be the person fighting forward, because if not, you're quickly forgotten.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. Also, I think a lot of artists don't realise that if you're not on top of the business side, that's when problems come in. It's as easy as that. You just have to keep an eye on everything. And I do admit that most business people are slightly scared of me because I pick things up very quickly. Excuse me, what's that in the contract? Excuse me.
Are you less feisty now than you were in 1975, for example?
I'm more intelligent now than I was in 1975.
More diplomatic, you mean?
I don't fly off the handle the way I used to. And I'm really good at negotiating. I even have other agents and other artists phone me up and say, could you negotiate this? And I go, come on, grow a pair.
It is a tough world to survive. I wonder, turning 60, what did that mean to you? I mean, was it personally thrilling that you'd made it to 60 and you look the way you do? Was it professionally? Did it matter to you? Was it a big sort of date last year?
I tell you, the biggest surprise, and it's been 12 months of surprises, on my 60th birthday, my audience downloaded me into #1 in the charts. And that's what's kicked off all of this. That led to Demon Music signing us on a contract, which is the first time I've been signed to a label in about 40 years. And then it's led to adding the 5 songs to In the Court of the Crimson Queen. And it's going at the speed of light. So 60 so far, and I've only got 1 month left of being 60, has been one of the best years of my life.
I asked Ken Dodd if he'd ever retire when he was 89, and he said, well, what's the point? You only retire to stop doing what you don't want to do what you do want to do, and I'm doing what I want to do, if you know what I'm trying to say. Well, are you doing what you want to do?
Yes, I am doing what I want to do. Did you know that Ken Dodd had a clause in all his contracts that he couldn't go beyond midnight?
Well, you never listened to it, though. He paid the fine.
He used to go on till 6 in the morning. That's more energy than I've got.
Yeah, it's inspiring, though, that old school ethic, though. He wanted to put on a show and he wouldn't get off stage until he felt he'd done that.
It's absolutely remarkable, that dedication to his audience. They knew they were in for the night. I think they used to bring pillows and picnic hampers.
It was great. Of all the people you've worked with, give me a couple of the ones that were a thrill for you.
I've run away from David Bowie twice because I just couldn't handle his presence. The first time was when he was appearing at the Milton Keynes Bowl. I think that was about 1983. And Phil Daniels and Phil Daniels of Quadrophenia, were backstage, and we sneaked on stage and we were sitting on the runway going up to the stage, and Bowie walked off stage and came and sat right next to us. And Phil was going, and I was going, oh my God. And we ran. And the next time was Bowie approached my husband, Robert Fripp, and I we were at an event, an Ordulph Robbins event at the Hotel Intercontinental on Park Lane, about 1986, could have been 87, and Bowie came up and asked Robert to join Tin Machine. And I just stood there, and I just... and I just backed out the room. I just couldn't take it. The guy was just... not his ego, his aura was so immense. It just went into yours. It was breathtaking.
And have you put your finger on what that is? What do these people do that I don't do?
I don't know, but I think there's some very special people out there. I imagine Mick Jagger and Keith Richards are a little like that as well.
Or is it just your mind putting onto them what you're thinking about them? Are they doing anything? Or?
No, some people have incredible power. Laurence Olivier had that, and Katharine Hepburn had that. Sting, in a way, has it, but when we made Quadrophenia with him, we were all in his hotel room learning the harmonies to Roxanne. He was incredibly encompassing. He was a very kind, good man. But some people just have this aura that just blows you away. I had to sit with Zac Efron for an interview once. Gorgeous boy, absolutely gorgeous, but I could just feel the aura just pushing me out of the picture.
And then, of course, when we look back on all the work you've done and the beautiful stuff you've done on stage, is there anything like that pin focus still? Can recording a CD compare with standing on a stage performing it live?
Every time I do a recording, I expect it to be the best thing I've ever done. And every time I walk on stage, I expect it to be the best show I've ever done. That has never changed. Do the two compare? Yes. Recording a CD, you always think about the connections it's going to create. Therefore, you're thinking and hoping and expecting that that is going to connect you to a future. And it's always been the same. It's never been any different.
You're a remarkable talent. You've got a stunning voice, and audiences never cease to be amazed by you. I love the new album. In the Court of the Crimson Queen is just wonderful, and as I say, sensational. It's truly one of the greatest songs I've heard in a very, very long time. Your voice is so precious. Be less hard on yourself. You seem to judge yourself more harshly than we do. We think you're delicious, and we think you're incredibly talented, and we think you've done quite enough. You have nothing else to achieve. It's already great. Stop pushing.
Oh, I don't know about that. You have to push to a certain extent to do certain things, especially to get in the big movies. You'll be amazed how hard you have to push to do that. I don't think I'll ever give up hope on all of these ambitions.
You know you're an inspiration, especially to young women. I mean, if you look at what you've done and how you've done it against all the odds, really, if you look at your background in your beginning and your own perception of yourself, it's an extraordinary achievement. You know that, right?
I am very conscious of how important it is to give young women and even just young people a positive message. My generation did have it easy in comparison today. We could buy houses, we could buy cars. I feel very, very responsible and conscious of the fact that we have to give people hope. And that's kind of a big message in the Court of the Crimson Queen, especially within sensational, that the world is yours. It just needs to be slightly reorganised, and you are the people that are going to do it.
Shall we bother talking about Brexit?
It's a mess that can't be solved. It just can't be solved. You know, whoever gets that chalice is going to be poisoned.
If there's one woman who can sort it out, it's you.
No, I'm clueless. I'm clueless. I don't know how they're going to do it.
What about Prime Minister? You'd make a marvellous job.
No, I wouldn't, really. I don't have that knowledge, and I'm not good at being criticised and having negativity thrown at you 24 hours a day.
And you can't win either way at this point, can you?
You can't win either way. No.
Toyah, thank you so much for your time. You're such a legend and a star. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Good to meet you.